Why is that important, 4-day week?
Because we have totally failed to use technology to rethink patterns of working behavior. One of the big problems is, okay, here's a classic case of path dependency. Now, if this seems a bit anti-feminist, bear with me, because I got the whole point from Faye Weldon, okay, which is when the two-income household first became possible, it was an extraordinary act of liberation because women were free to work if they chose to do so, okay? Households that would rather have money than leisure could effectively have two people in the workforce, and therefore they could acquire goods at a rapider pace before they perhaps had children, okay? Then what happened is it became the norm, and the two-income family went from being an option to being compulsory because you couldn't afford a house unless you had that. And so that brought with it what you might call an increase in wealth, but a decrease in freedom. And so the typical married household with children has essentially gained not much economically because house prices have simply gone up pro rata, okay? They've lost 35 hours or 40 hours of discretionary time a week, which, now, I don't think we need all 40 of those hours. I think we have labour-saving appliances, which mean we might need 15 or 20. The extent to which childbearing disproportionately hurts female careers could also be solved if, as this fantastic MP proposes, that flexible working should be a default in all advertised jobs, and you'd have to give a reason why the job wasn't flexible. So instead of making flexible working an option, jobs are flexible by default unless they're not.
Okay.
And she's a very astute behavioral scientist. I've met her and she's brilliant. I'm kicking myself, I can't remember her name.
And this is, again, trading that income for the leisure that you said earlier that actually has more value.
America doesn't have a mechanism by which you could choose to earn a bit less money and have a lot more leisure. Now, just to give an example, you could double your holiday, your vacation allowance from 2 weeks to 4 at the cost of 4% of salary.
Yeah.
My hunch would be if given the freedom, more than 50% of Americans would do it. Why don't they do it? Because if you were the first person to go into your boss and say, I want 4 weeks vacation, it looks like you're not committed.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something that has to be mandated because if you don't mandate it, essentially no one will ever put the bell on the cat.
Okay. Now, that's interesting.
And I also think, by the way, America would probably be richer if they did this. Now, this sounds strange, but if you think about it, money spent in leisure time is much more labour intensive and is spent locally. So I would argue that Americans probably have too many goods and too few hours in which to enjoy them.
Right, and then if they spent those, that it would be to
that actually you'd probably boost the economy more. I find, by the way, I go on holiday to the United States, and one of the reasons is that you get so little bloody vacation that even in peak times of the year, tourist attractions like the Grand Canyon. So we first went to the Grand Canyon completely out of season, okay, and we basically just parked next to the canyon and we looked at it, okay. The next time we went, it was with my children, so it had to be in the school holidays, so I think it was July or August. And we actually ended up in overflow car park C and had to walk a small way to the canyon, right? Now, if the Grand Canyon were in Spain, okay, in July and August, you wouldn't be able to get within 20 miles of it for people gawping at it. But you get so little vacation time that the only people who are going to see it, typically what it would be an American whose company has one of those conferences that ends on a Friday in Scottsdale. And because the American conference industry is basically the American holiday industry in disguise.
So America needs to try to prioritize the spending versus the wealth. The interesting thing is,
wealth is to some extent the choices you can make with it. Okay,
correct.
Wealth only increases if it increases the meaningful choices you can make.
Correct.
One of the reasons the very rich are often quite poor is if they're trapped in the status framework of other very rich people, they end up doing totally mindless and stupid things simply to compete. Which, this is why actually, one thing about Boris isn't really a genuine aristocrat, though he acts like one. One interesting thing I always think is, people who know how to spend their money are the very poor and very posh, not the very rich. The reason the very posh know how to spend their money is they don't give a shit what anyone else thinks, okay? And the very poor can't afford to engage in senseless signalling activities, so they tend to spend their money on things that are actually fun.